Are there any questions from anything that we have talked about or that has crossed your path or actually just come to your mind? If there are any questions or comments, please make them now. Okay.
Pastor Ron.
Uh-huh.
It's not really a question. I guess it's just something we talked about over and over again. And I just wanted to mention anyway the importance of us staying balanced or keeping our focus on what we're looking at. I was talking to someone, as I mentioned, part of the conversation to you the other day, and it's just a lot of people out there are feeling despair, and it's just incumbent upon us, I guess, to be encouragement, and because people, I've heard a couple people say, things ain't gonna change. I never see things change. So, and you try to tell them, but it's hard to explain to them to be patient and to keep your focus and your eyes on truth. And if they've been coming out of their churches and they're hearing something different, that's hard for them to do. So I guess it's just important to us as we hear and talk to people out there that we don't get pulled in that direction as well. To show them if there's nothing else to focus on you. Focus on the hope that you have. So I just want to mention that because I think that's important as we go in this new year.
Thank you, Ron. Anyone else? I agree with you. That disparity that you spoke of, I had an experience with it, and I know the reason I had an experience with it, and it's because for as long as we've had children, they've always been home this time of the year, with the exception of last night. To help you understand better, from the time that they left to go to college up until now, they understood one principle, if no other. On Christmas Eve, you're at home. And we spend that time cooking, talking, just having family time together. We do wine sips and stuff like that. And that did not happen this year. And I said, why? Why did this happen? And then I thought about it. It had to. Because if religion is to be removed from this earth consciousness, or at the very least minimized to the extent that no one really pays it any attention anymore, then those favorite days that they have labeled with religion or have indoctrinated people to believe that they are sacred religious days, Christmas, Easter, they had to be broken. That tie had to be broken. And it seems as though, maybe not to you, but to me anyway, that we were flowing towards a time when people within the bubble could come together. And all of a sudden, it appears that Omicron came on the scene. And when it came on the scene, it came ferociously. And it stopped those who paying any attention to what is necessary in order to protect themselves and humanity, slowed the road and began to take notice of what was happening. And in doing so, the plans that so many of us have made were not the plans that the Creator had for us. So we had to alter our plans or put them on hold. And I think it's another time of reflection, just like when we were at the onset of COVID. We talked about how this stopped us in our tracks in order to give us opportunity to see our lives in a different way, as well as the lives of others, and begin the journey of transitioning the attitude of this earth to an attitude of righteousness. And in doing that, it would have to be done with the underpinnings of religion being removed. And here we are at one of those days when the baby's in the manger and the shepherds are around them, all fictitious, of course, and church doors were open last night and some this morning for the purpose of worshiping one who told them that he was not to be worshipped. But not only that, not realizing that they are worshiping Tammuz, the son of Jezebel, who was supposed to resurrect during the winter solstice. And that this period is a made-up day from Catholicism, and religion has brought into it, other religions have brought into it. And we bought into it as well. And it is time for us to see it for what it is, and that is a pagan day with an opportunity for us to visit with family and to interact with each other. Because the controllers of the society only allows extended family interaction when they determine it's necessary. And Christmas is one of those days, one of those periods. So it's not about Christmas. It's about family with those who understand the nature of religion itself. Now, I do also, but before I go into this a little further, are there any questions?
Yeah, good morning, Pastor. I don't have a question, but I'd just like to speak on what both you and Ron mentioned as we started, our session this morning. And Ron spoke about the importance of, remaining focused on, the teachings that we've been having. And some of the words that was spoken, have our spiritual disciplines that I think that I just wanted to announce only because it's what I'm hearing. And Ron spoke about the importance of balance, truth. You spoke about the importance of righteousness. And these particular words, they are actually spiritual disciplines, from the Mayatian teachings. And so I know that, again, as we look at balance and we look at justice, we look at order, we look at harmony and reciprocity, I think that, again, these are just all what you say in ways that we're able to understand better how to break the traditions of religion and really look at the power of words and us being able to share with others that we can help them through this process of what we're going through. So I appreciate, again, the words that are being spoken, and I know these words have significance, and it's just us having a better understanding of how to apply them. I just wanted to share those thoughts. Thank you. I'm done. I'm sorry, I'm done. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. I'm just talking.
Okay.
Thank you, but I was muted, so I thought I was being heard. However, what I was saying is that when we look at the despair that surrounds us, what we are seeing is the material that we are being given to build a clearer understanding of what light is and who we are. What am I saying? Despair is darkness. And we have been told that darkness is evil and light is good. However, we know in 45 and 7, the scripture clearly says that both light and darkness, evil and good, were created by the Lord. Even though we were taught in Sunday school and heard from the pulpit the proclamation that there is no evil in God, therefore God could not have created evil. And in believing that, what we ended up doing was creating a devil, an entity that does not exist and never has. There was an article that Ron sent me, and I was reading it. And in reading it, I saw a clearer understanding of the idea that God formed the light and created darkness and made peace and create evil. And it ends by saying, I am the Lord who does all of these. Well, first of all, there is no concept of evil as we know it in the Hebrew or Aramaic language. No language in the East has any word that compares to our understandings of what evil is. So I hope you're hearing me. When we talk about evil being vicious and bad and murderous, that's not what evil means. There is no word to describe what I just said in terms of the creation of good and evil. The idea of evil simply speaks to something that does not function the way that it was supposed to function. And when we speak about good, we're talking about the functionality of righteousness. And let me delve into that a little before I stop for questions. This whole idea of functionality speaks to the light of creation, and the dysfunctionality speaks to the flood itself. So these two are juxtaposed or against each other. They're side by side with each other. And the reason they are there is because if it were not for unrightness or evil or dysfunction, there would be no function. There would be no light, because there is nothing to compare it to. As the writer says, if there was no there was no coldness, nothing would be hot, because we would not know what the difference is if those two things did not exist. And they exist for the express purpose of being able to show us what balance looks like, and to show us how to bring balance into existence in this earth. The writer also referenced a scripture in Exodus 20 and 21 where it says that Moses went into the darkness where God was. So this in itself says that God was in the darkness, and that's where he met Moses. And out of the darkness came the light of the what we call the Ten Commandments, or what is known as the 10 Declarations of our Creator. And this shows us clearly that in the midst of the darkness, there is light also, or that light comes out of the darkness. Now, if we want to get a better look at this, then I suggest that we look at the 7th chapter of Corinthians, and verses, 14, and 14, and in particular. Verse 14 says, "In the day of prosperity, be happy, but in the day of adversity, consider God has made the one as well as the other, so that man may not discover anything that will be after him." Well, what Solomon is writing here, if we look at the word prosperity, Solomon is saying during the day, during the period when everything is pleasant, during the period when everything is going well for you, be joyful, be cheerful. And then he says, but in the day of adversity, consider God has made one as well as the other, so that man may not discover anything like him. What he's saying in essence is this: be mindful that God made the period of the opportunity of prosperity as well as adversity. And he's saying that the reason for this is because God did not want man to be able to see anything that looked like him. All of the things that are in this earth and all of the concepts that are in this earth, there are none that looks like man. And that word for man is actually Adam. So it's not talking about Ish and Isha. It's talking about the spiritual entity of Adam. There is absolutely nothing in this earth that looks like man. And he is saying, and by saying that, he is telling us that be grateful for both of them. And then that 15th verse, he says, I have seen everything during my lifetime of futility. There is a righteous man who perishes in his righteousness, and there is a wicked man who prolongs his life in his wickedness. And we have at one point talked in depth about that without even looking at this particular scripture. Solomon is saying that there is a man that he has, in doing his life in this earth, he says futility. But if you look at the word for futility, it talks about breath and speaks of vapor. So what Solomon is saying is that during his spiritual life in this earth, he has seen quite a few things. There is a righteous man, which means that there is someone who seeks to do the right thing, yet he perishes. And the one who is evil does not. He prolongs his life. So Solomon is actually talking about what we say a lot. This man is so mean. Why is he allowed to live and a good man dies? So Solomon is telling us that the two men, the righteous and the wicked, are side by side. And the reason for their leaving this earth or being spared in this earth has been designed by our Creator. And in doing so, it brings balance to the earth. If we think about it spiritually, what we see is the adversities that we have experienced over the years, be it from slavery or from watching the death of African men in particular at the hands of policemen, both Caucasian and African, of course. If we look at that, that is the thing, that is the catalyst, at least one of the catalysts anyway, but all coupled with all the other adversities that we have had to deal with, this is the catalyst that has pushed us to search for more, something different. In other words, the more thing that we're searching for, and the different things that we are searching for is not things at all. We thought they were. We thought that the things would bring us, put us in parity with everyone else in this earth who has prosperous means. That did not happen. So what we were looking for is ourselves. We thought we were looking to be on parity with our enslavers, but that was not the right thing to search for. We thought that if we got an education and did all the right things, then we would be accepted. The problem with that is we all have been accepting the unrighteous journey that leads us further and further away from the mirror that shows us who we are. And the mirror that shows us who we are is placed in front of us, yet we can't see it because there is so much in between us and that mirror. We have to purge ourselves of the religious ideology that has been pounded into us for generation after generation, and begin to see with the clarity the righteousness that we have been created not only to be but to represent in the midst of humanity. If it were not for the problems, the headaches, the adversity, the murders, the rapes, if it were not for enslavement and all these other things, we would not been pushed to seek and to find who we were created to be. Are there any questions before I continue? Or comments? Or anything to expand on what I'm saying? And even corrections, if there are any.
I have a comment. This is Barbara. Good morning.
Morning.
What you said about adversity being a necessity, and that God was in the darkness as well as the light. The basic thing that I think about is if I truly trust the Creator, then I have to trust Him in adversity as well as in the good times. If I truly trust the Creator and not the situation, that's what I must do. So that's the way that I look at it for myself.
Thank you. And I see exactly what you're saying as well. The idea of adversity is unhappiness. We would not know what happiness is if we were not happy at some point. Misery, things that are displeasing, adversities. That's what helps us appreciate the times of joy. And prosperity is not money. Prosperity, according to the scriptures, is joy. So that is exactly what we're talking about, Brother James. And when Solomon talked about the consideration of what's happening, consider what God is doing, he said, just stop and see what's being done, and then you will understand more clearly the reality of the reasoning for having done this. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, Pastor Ron. You said a lot of things. One of the things you said reminded me of what we talked about on Monday night when we talked about meditation. And I think it was Kathy that was talking about how the breathing techniques and how to breathe. And we talked about not trying to push those adverse thoughts away, but embracing them and let them come through. And I think you just spoke on that, the importance of that bringing you balance and pushing you further into seeking what the truth that you're seeking. That was one thought that came to mind. The other one that you mentioned balance as well. When I think of balance and some of the things you mentioned, whether it's up or down or right or left or the right foot, left foot, in most cases, balance is easily achieved because you have an intimate relationship with both sides. Even if it's a husband and wife who are seeking truth, who have love in their relationship, that intimate relationship, that knowledge of who they both are, helps one to yield to the other when time is necessary, and they work in harmony and without a lot of thought or any type of friction. But in the case of race relations, what the adversity that we see, then it's not adversity because there is no harmonious relationship between the black man and the white man. There is no agreement. There is no intimacy. So then the balance that is seeked cannot be then, am I looking at this wrong? It cannot be those two types of men. Then what you're saying is the balance that you seek are the principles that guide those two men, and the intimacy that you have then in that situation is with your knowledge of the Creator and not with functioning or so much as focusing rather on being the African or being the Caucasian, being the European. Am I making sense? Maybe not.
Yeah, I want to see if I'm seeing what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, I just saw balance a little bit different when you said that. I guess my mind got to thinking because what I said at the beginning, the two people who said something to me about not having hope and nothing changes were two females, and that caught my attention right away. And seeing that from a spiritual perspective, that is, that they are two people that I trust who want to do what is right and in their own way are seeking truth. But our focus is on people more than it needs to be, maybe.
Not maybe.
Because if you're seeking balance and you keep looking at the actions of the people rather than the energy that animate the people, we're missing we're missing the target of balance. I'm thinking. I don't know. Maybe I'm rambling.
Are you not? What I see and what you're saying is that if we were to look at it from that perspective, what we would see is conceptually the African is the righteousness, and conceptually the Caucasian is the adversity. However, the African has also become the adversity because it has encapsulated the concepts that made it a slave, or that forced it to see itself as being inferior. So the concept of being African is inferior to the concept of being European. And if we look at it from that perspective, what do we see? We see that when the Caucasian sees that racism is unrighteousness, then that concept leads that Western mindset out of the bondage of that Western concept that seeks to enslave anyone who doesn't look like it and take everything they can from anyone on this earth. Once they began to see that and began to find themselves, what they began to do is move away from those unrighteous concepts, and in doing so, they actually become conceptually African as we are, in terms of the concept of what it means to have an African mindset and European. I'm using this as an example, hopefully, to bring some clarity or to help you see, Ron, what I saw as you were speaking. And there's something else I saw, but I want to see if this is on the same page with you. If you're talking, you're muted.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I was talking. What I heard you saying was, and that in our own way, our fears and our frustrations are long as we focus on the people, our fears and our frustrations are the catalyst that keeps us going, not necessarily their energy. It's our energy that is powering them to keep that thing moving in the direction that it's moving in.
Yes.
So you're trying to run away from something that you are creating, and you can't distance yourself from that.
And the whole concept of the browning of America is speaking to the balance. That's all. Because there is no such thing as race. There are representations of spiritual truth. And if the adversity towards the African came from a Western mindset, then the righteousness of the African must bring balance to that mindset. And once that balance is brought, what we are seeing in hearing conceptually is the browning of America. And those who have troubles with that are the ones with white skin, because they feel like as long as their skin is white, they're superior. In order to bring balance, that must change. We are simply physical manifestations of spiritual truth. And the spiritual truth being manifested in a physical way shows us concepts that we don't understand because we see them with our eyes and not with our eye. And when we see them with our eyes and not with our eye, that presents in itself a problem. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, when we talk about, you spoke of energy, this is one of the things that I think has been hidden right in front of us. Why are people so jovial during this time of the year? Why is it that there is such pleasantness during this period of the year? It's not because of a baby in a manger. No. It's because the energy shifts. Because during this period of the year, giving becomes a priority. Family becomes a priority. These concepts of family and giving to whom? At this period of the year, we see more than ever that we are our brother's keeper. We are supposed to enhance their presence and their care in the earth. The problem is that we only do it during a certain period. And the period in which we do it is the most jovial period in the whole year. And it has nothing to do with a Christmas program or what is said to be the meaning of Christmas. Does that make sense? Can you see that? And this is not just Ron, it's all of you.
Yes,
Is it clear? I mean, does it really make sense to you?
it does.
So
Yes.
right now, go ahead. Right now, there is some despair, and there has been a damper put on our joy, not because of a manger, but because, yes, we are given, but there are limitations on family gatherings. And the disparity is manifested in a greater way than it would be if it was something else that was keeping us apart. Last year, there was disparity, but not like this year, because we came so close to being able to be together, and right at the last moment, it appears as though the rug was snatched from under us. If we had been able to complete this journey of interaction with family as we thought we were going to be, then we would not be talking about the reason there is such joy during this period. The energy of it would be lost in our desires to be with family and not focusing on the spiritual reason that the energy is so pleasant. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, that being said, let's understand something. The battle that we have with holding on to what we know the truth to be versus being in despair is seen by an example. Let's say that you walk into a dark room, and in that room, your eyes have to adjust, and all of a sudden you can see. Where does the light come from? If the light that you are seeing, that allowing you to see, came from the darkness, then you would have been able to see the moment you walked in the room, and your eyes would not have to adjust. the iris opens, and the light that allows you to see comes from within you. You are the light that is allowing you to see. It is no different than the light being called out of the darkness. In the depths of the darkness of this body that Elohim occupies, there is light. And that light appears when it is necessary to bring enlightenment as well as to bring us to a place of light itself. So the idea of the disparity now is because there is a greater cause, that there is a greater reason for what we are experiencing. The Omicron. Omicron came on the scene like gangbusters. And it is my belief that the Omicron is the end. The purpose of it is for us to not only see, but to experience miracles and greater principles than we've ever seen before. If the science is real, and I don't have a reason to think it's not, those who have put the blood, as I think it was Kathy said, on the doorpost will live. Those who didn't won't. Those who are vaccinated and boosted, that's the blood on the doorpost. On the doorpost. Those who refuse, those who are anti-everything, who did not do that, who are being led by those who did it, did not put it on the doorpost. Therefore, they will find themselves in the Red Sea, drowning in their own despair at the moment when they see that obedience is better than the sacrifices that they are engaged in. And what I mean by sacrifices, they are seeking the approval of men who are racist. They are seeking the approval of unrighteousness, and they are receiving something. The sacrifice is about getting. And they are sacrificing, they are giving up their lives, they're putting their lives in jeopardy for the purpose of receiving the approval of people who don't even care about them.
Pastor,
Yes?
so you're saying the sacrifice is them giving up themselves, and when I mean by themselves, I mean their righteous self, because they're following this thing that's exterior to them that is basically a golden calf or whatever. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Okay. So they're sacrificing themselves in more ways than one, really. They're both giving up their own balance, their own righteous self, as well as putting their very life at risk.
Yes. That's exactly what they're doing. And that's what I'm saying about the Omicron being the end. because if the science is right, then they are actually missing out on something. And what they're missing out on is an opportunity to receive enough antibodies in their body to resist the attempt of COVID to infect the body. Now, that's what the science is showing, but only if you have been vaccinated, fully vaccinated, 1,000% more. If you get Omicron. However, I do not believe that has to be the case. What I do believe is that this virus moves so fast to stop people in their tracks, and is telling us, read the signs of the times. You have been searching, you have been desiring an end because of the suffering, the pain. Now you're beginning to see it. I believe that we have within ourselves the power to deal with this for everyone. And it is represented by the Omicron. And in dealing with it, it is not about the preservation of the body as much as it is about the preservation of humanity, who desires to know who they are, who desires to live in harmony. Does that make sense to you?
It does, but I have another question.
Sure.
Okay, I understand the sacrifice part, but what is the obey part? I mean, can you kind of clarify that? I mean, what to obey is better than sacrifice? We're obeying.
They are obeying their own thing. They are obeying. They're disobeying the righteous thing, right? So it is better to obey the righteous principles than it is for you to make sacrifices searching for what you want. Trying to find what you think you need, trying to find out who you think you are, as opposed to being obedient to righteousness and being shown all of these things that you're searching for in order to find out is not about the things, it's about the spiritual. Does that make sense? Audrey?
Okay, so to obey is to follow your inner self, your inner guide?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Hey,
Any other questions?
this is Nick. Maybe I can add, I believe a simple way to think about it is that they will not sacrifice their pride to sort of obey the inner voice that says we need to work together as one to deal with this thing. So in some ways, it's a rejection of a sort of more unified approach to dealing with a problem, and it's a rejection of a sense of unified purpose. And it's sort of in service of this misunderstood, sort of out of balance, confused version of personal freedom that they are worshiping in place of the sort of spiritual connectedness of all things, in a way. I'm done.
This is Barbara. Piggybacking on what Nick says, the personal freedom thing is all about this idea of selfishness. And it's selfishness highlighted because people are not thinking about the impact that their actions have, not only on themselves, but on others. And it's all about me, 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 me. And so somehow this cycle of selfishness, which is what everything is about anyway, needs to be broken or needs to be transformed into that of unselfishness.
And yeah, thank you. Let me add to that. Freedom and personal freedom is, of course, not a bad thing. But that's not exactly what we were just speaking about. It's the selfish sort of desire to do what I want when I want, regardless of what the times call for. And there is an appropriate sort of time and response for all things. And it's the unwillingness to let go of that sort of selfish desire to do what I want at all times in the face of something that calls for sort of sacrificing that desire, that selfish aspect of that desire.
I see that, Nicholas and Barbara. Is there anyone else who wants to speak to this or see something else in regards to it?
Sorry, I booted myself out of the conference, so I apologize for that in case there was a follow-up or a question. Thank you.
Okay.
Pastor, I have a question, but it's not about what we just talked about.
Okay, well, would you hold 1 second then and let me complete this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The other thing, go ahead.
Oh, I had a thought following up with what Barbara and Nick just said, or what we're talking about in general, the way that I thought about it in terms of this rejection. And when we think about, say it again.
Oh, 1 second. Evelyn.
Yes, sir.
Hold that question, as you said, go take us in a different direction. Write it so you won't forget it, okay?
I won't. Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, Sheldon.
It made me think of the idea of when we talk about our responsibility, but we also have a freedom as well. I thought of it in the sense of us being parents, and in choosing ourselves and not to deal or be responsible for the all of thinking of the whole is us deciding not to be parents in a sense. So when you think about loosely, in loose terms, what we consider bad parents who have abdicated their responsibilities, who walked away, and they don't want to. How should I put this? To properly guide and support, and when I mean by God, I mean God from behind their kids who they are there to help on their maturation and growth. So in a sense, when we do that, we are doing that to the whole. And in terms of that sacrifice that Audrey meant, we're sacrificing literally ourselves and our own personal growth, as well as those who, I don't like the word saying in charge of, but those who are in a sense that we can help. But it goes hand in hand, because we sacrifice ourselves, we sacrifice our growth, we sacrifice the richness that we could have in our life as well, or we sacrifice the greater fulfillment that we could have within ourselves also. But not to say that there's not work that is involved, of course, because to be responsible in itself takes one walking out and using exerting energy, and things of that nature in order to. should I put this? It's like you're giving, when you're responsible for something, when you're caring for something, there is something that you're giving up of yourself in order to do that. And that what you are giving up is you, forgive me as I try to put all of these concepts in words. That which you are giving up is not putting yourself first or holding on to that I am going to take care of myself in whatever way. So this can be time, this can be energy, this can be money, this can be emotionally. There is no limit, but the thing is holding on tight to what I have and not giving or sharing that which is within me. I'm finished.
Okay. And anyone want to speak to what Sheldon said or see something in conjunction with it?
Yeah, I just want to sort of wrap it up for myself. But so if anytime we don't obey the inner voice in us, we essentially sacrifice our growth, and our self-righteousness. And I don't mean that in the pejorative term, but so anytime we don't listen to our inner voice, we basically sacrifice ourselves. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, and you sacrifice yourself from also knowing and in a sense discovering yourself as well. So
yeah, from growth, from growth and discovery, and knowing the Creator.
Yes, and then part of that which you're not experiencing is the more so of the Creator, because once we let go and stop sacrificing ourselves, that's when we are able to experience and walk in and be, in a sense, closer to that oneness with the Creator. And in a sense, when you think about what a Creator is, the kind of like the concept, the Creator is creating from without, from in itself. And so in order to even really participate, do that firsthand, you have to let go is a requirement. They work hand in hand. In a sense, I guess if I say I want to be part of I want to experience the Creator, I want to experience this greater thing, but then I'm holding on to who I am tightly, and I don't want to experience anything else. I myself am fighting myself from being able to do that which I am saying I actually want to do. I'm not allowing myself to do so as long as I purposely, stubbornly stay where I'm at.
Is it a true spiritual sacrifice if sacrifice is about receiving something? Is it a true and I don't mean receiving the consequences of your decisions, but from a spiritual perspective, is it a true sacrifice if in fact a person does make a decision not to do something on his own because of his own selfishness? And is it a true spiritual sacrifice if that person doesn't realize that that he or she is not giving up something but gaining something?
That's the big picture. See that clearly because I see that in that dream or vision I had last night. This preacher who told me that he could not tell his folk that he'd been wrong all these years, made a sacrifice. He sacrificed the opportunity to realize the purpose for being in this earth and the purpose for being a guidance for the people that he covered. He knew that what I was teaching was right because he would call and ask for explanation. And for him to say that he could not tell his people he'd been wrong all these years, said to me, he recognized that the religious concepts that were being taught were totally wrong. But not only did he sacrifice himself, he sacrificed all of those he covered because he killed an opportunity for them to see themselves. Last night, and several nights I've dreamed about this individual.
Exactly right.
Would you please mute your phone? Thank you. I dreamed about this individual, and we were at this church, and the son was being criticized for things that he had said and done, and the people apparently had put him out because he was sitting like on the outside but in a vestibule type place. And Daddy shows up in a black suit. And Daddy begins to chastise the people for challenging his son. And he asked me, where did I stand? And I told him, no, I don't agree with you. And I remember having gone out in front of everyone, but when I got there, I knew there were presence of people, but I couldn't see them. And spoke to them about my feelings about him coming to defend his son when his son was 100% wrong. And I remember him saying to me, get out. And as I was leaving, I turned and looked at him and said, you will be dead in a month. So when I awakened this morning, it was more than that, but that's the gist of it. But when I awakened this morning, I was trying to see what I had been shown, and it wasn't that church that I know the pastor was over. It was a presence. It was like a crowd of energy, people, but the people weren't present. Their presence was there, if that makes sense. And saying that you will be dead in a month was speaking to religion, and it reinforced the reason that we had to be on this weekend. It says to me that we're not on to something. We have done something. We have brought the power structure that supports all the unrighteousness in the earth to its knees. And I don't know how long a month is spiritually. That's left up to the universe. But I do know that those are the words that were spoken. And I did not feel justified. I did not feel angry. In other words, I was not gleeful. Neither was I angry or upset. It was what it was. That was it. And I felt extremely balanced in the statement, and I felt like everything changed as I was exiting the place. And I knew it was still structurally behind me, but I also knew that it could do no damage because all the power had been taken away from it. So I say all of that to say I clearly understand what you were saying, Barbara, because of people refusing to sacrifice who they think they are in order to receive an understanding of who they really are. And I do also believe that the vision I had has a real impact on what we are dealing with. And the reason I say that is because it was in this month that that same person was buried, not funeralized, but buried. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope it's a clear example. But more importantly, I am relating to you that religion, the hold that religion has had on humanity has been broken. And it is also shown by the reality of Omicron being in a state right now of limiting the interaction of all of us. And speaking with someone whose church they came back together, saying to me that you're the only one who had sense because you didn't go back. All the rest of them been going in and out, in and out. People have been sick. People have been dying. And this person I hadn't talked to in weeks. So there are so many things that are happening. Yesterday, I saw something I'd never seen in my life. And this was literal in front of my eyes. I saw a flock of redbirds in my yard. I only have seen two, maybe four rather, but this was a flock. And I've never seen that before. And I won't get into the connotations of that. But I also want to share with you that, before I get to you, Evelyn, that we have been shown the change, not only through Omicron, but through the trials. The trial of Floyd convicted a policeman. The trial in Georgia convicted white supremacists. The trial in Minnesota with the policeman shooting mistaken, and I quote in quotations, mistakenly using a gun instead of a taser, convicted. This has never happened in the manner that it is happening in this nation, ever. This is a powerful message when you couple it with everything else that's going on. This is loud and clear from our Creator that we are experiencing the balance that's already in the spiritual realm, but is beginning to manifest in this natural realm. Questions or comments? Okay. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Evelyn?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to ask, and I may have missed it, when you said that the Omicron is the end, but the more you talk, the more I guess I have an understanding of it, but I want to just ask that you answer that so I can be clear.
Yes, ma'am. When I say the end, I use the end in the same way that Solomon used it in King James Version. And the end speaks to the purpose. What is the purpose of it? For what end was it sent? For what purpose was it sent? So the purpose of it being sent is a message to tell us that we are in the last throes of this virus, meaning that we are at the end of this journey where people have been given a chance to reevaluate themselves, to reevaluate how they think, how they act, to reevaluate what they believe in. The opportunity is there. They have been given that, and the way they have been given that opportunity is because this thing stopped us in our track and gave us opportunity rather to be reflective on where we have come from and what we were looking forward to, if that makes sense. Evelyn?
Yeah, it does. So, Pastor, if we hadn't have met or intercede or stand in the gap for mankind, would more people have died or what?
If it gave today, yes, it would have, but it gave us the opportunity to define, and I don't like that word define, to see clearly and to be one with the universe when we look at the reason for it, the purpose for it coming at such a time as this, the end of the year, during a period when everyone is reflecting on giving and being jovial at home with each other, just having a great time, and helping us to see it is not Christmas that did that. It's your energy. It's your desire to be expressive of loving kindness, because there is an expression of loving kindness more during this time of the year than any other time. And it's not about a baby in a cradle in Egypt. It's about the energy of being who we were created to be. Does that make sense to you?
Yes. So I do feel we all want it to be where loving kindness is shown throughout the year, so to speak. So are we doing that now?
Yes.
Fixing it, or?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, are we, to end this once a year thing, are we, what we're doing on these days that we meet, or just in general, putting stuff out in the macro, will that end just doing stuff at the end of the year and just let it be what it is, Yeah,
this energy that we are speaking of is in the macro. It is available for everyone. Do we determine who accepts it? No. However, the enlightenment, the light of it, the power of it is experienced by everyone. And there will be, in the coming year, more people expressive of loving kindness in a public way than you have ever seen. And the plans that we have made have been disrupted by Omicron, and it looks like Omicron was unrighteousness, but it wasn't. It was the necessary, its presence was necessary to bring us to this place where we are able to put more loving kindness into this earth by understanding the energy source of this time of the year. And when we understand that, we then understand why, for example, Evelyn, why you cry. You're not crying because you have done anything or trying to change anything for yourself. You don't even know the reason the tears are flowing, but the tears are flowing because of the unnecessary spiritual suffering of humanity. I'm not talking about physical. I'm talking about spiritual suffering. It is more painful to suffer spiritually than it is to suffer physically. Spiritual suffering is when you are holding on to a belief that changes absolutely nothing in your life. Spiritual suffering is when you look at what's going on and you have prayed for God to change it, and it's getting worse instead of better. You see no way for it to change because you don't realize that praying is not going to change it. Desire is what changes it. Spiritual suffering is being ignorant as to how you were fearfully and wonderfully made. Spiritual suffering speaks to unholy teaching of the scriptures. And I use that word loosely, unholy scriptures, teachings rather. It spiritual suffering is when you believe that you are justified in what you do simply because you drink a small vessel of wine and ate a cookie or a cracker, as opposed to understanding that what you were saying in doing that is you don't remember anything about what Jesus taught. Spiritual suffering is when you believe that baptism is going to get you into a place that doesn't exist, as opposed to being taught what the Bible really says or what the scriptures say about the idea of heaven being enlightenment in the earth. There is no such thing as evil as we have been taught to believe it. Neither is there anything in existence of a hell that we have been taught to believe. So that's spiritual suffering. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Any questions about that? Comments?
Pastor, this is Ron. I was looking at something while everybody was talking about sacrifice, and what I saw, the author that I like, name is Benner, Benner. He wrote a piece on sacrifice, and I go to him a lot, not for some understanding sometimes, but what he's saying is, in true sacrifice or an offering is to draw closer to someone, and when you look at it from that perspective, you even he gave several examples, but your paying tithe is you're drawing closer to the Creator. You're not doing it out of an obligation. You're not doing it because it was in Scripture and you're mandated to do it. You're doing it out of a desire to give close to get close to something or someone. Even he used the example of a husband bringing his wife flowers is to draw closer. So he also used the term offering, looked at it in a different way than I thought, because sometimes you don't have to give a sacrifice, but you make the offering. You may have absolutely nothing to sacrifice, but the offering is out of your love, is out of self, and you give that. And so the example is, I may not have anything to give but praise, but that too is accepted because it comes from the internal me, the heart of me. So when we look at it from that perspective, and everybody's exactly right, we've been taught that, and one of the things we experience mindfully is we're giving up something. But if we look at that from a different perspective, a different focus, is what is our desire with the Creator? We're desiring to get closer to the Creator, and in essence, get closer to understanding who we are. So I just thought that was just worth adding.
That's really clear. Yeah, I like that. If you can, would you send that?
Okay.
Are there any questions or comments about that?
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
So, are we considered as the sacrificial lamb too? When we I'll just leave it right there.
Of course we are, because we have sacrificed who we thought we were in order to become who we were created to be.
Okay.
When I feeling this. When I talked about Monday night that we were going to have experiences that are tragic, that are beyond what we've ever experienced before, it does not only include watching, being exposed to the suffering of humanity for the purpose of opening the eyes of those who are hell-bent on being disruptive and wrong. But it also means that we are going to have experiences that hurt us, not just us because of what's happening to humanity, but things that weigh on us because of what's happening in our environment and within the confines of the circle that we travel in, or circles that we travel in. Pain is not there to hurt in terms of destroying you. Pain is there to remind you that you're alive and that something is changing. Not just in your body, but spiritual pain is saying to you that you're birthing something. And those experiences of the birthing, the pain of birthing, are worth embracing as opposed to complaining. We cannot, as Ron said earlier, get caught up in the despair or the complaining that is taking place as a result of what we see. Let's know what we are about to be shown. When we walk across the bridge of this year, and the reason it is so important to understand this is because we created year, we created time, and the time, and by virtue of being the dominators of this earth, the universe recognizes the time that we have created and the increments that we have placed it in. So when I talk about crossing the bridge of this year, I'm speaking that because the universe recognizes what we call a year and the next year, which means that we are moving into different seasons of life. When we cross that bridge, it's going to appear that all hell has broken loose. There are going to be more fears than there is despair. The fear that's going to grip so many people, especially in this nation, is the fear of being relegated to a state of poverty because of how things are structured in this nation. The fear of being brutalized, if not murdered, by those who feel like they can do it with impunity. White supremacy is going to reach a crescendo that we have never experienced before. But we have to remember this upon everything is remember this, that is only noise. It's not music. They're not lyrics to a song. It's simply noise without rhythm. If we define it, if we give a meaning to it, that it is dangerous, that we're going to die and people are going to be killed, that's what's going to happen. We must, for what it is, noise. Okay? Simple noise. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Yes, it does. Yes.
Yes, and that's good to know.
Noise. Joe Manchin, noise. Build Back Better, noise. And we are going to allow that noise to flow through us. And in doing so, it will be transformed And the transforming of that noise will make it a melody. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's incumbent upon us. I remember when I grew up, there was a song called "Over My Head, I Hear Music in the Air."
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm talking about. There's a difference between noise and music. Noise is what I make on a piano. Music is what we look forward to and what soothes us.
This is Ramel. Sage, is that the same as saying talking loud and you're really saying nothing?
Same thing.
Okay.
When you look at TV and hear the people on the news, they are talking loud and saying nothing. They are instilling fear in our humanity. And if that fear is to be overcome, we must overcome it. We cannot feel as though it's going to happen the way that they describe that it's going to happen. We know that we are creators and we are transformers. And everything that passes through our energy is transformed into something that benefits humanity. That is a way of saying that the instruments of war are being beaten into plowshares. Rather than kill, they're going to give life. Questions, comments?
Morning, Pastor.
Yeah.
Again, this is George. Go ahead, Ron. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead, George.
No, I was just going to ask Pastor, when you were talking about being able to read the signs and the times, or you talked about seasons, is there any relevancy in terms of, the book of Ecclesiastes, when it talks about there's a time and season for everything and a purpose, a time, to be born and a time to die? Does that have any relevancy to the time that we're living in now in terms of what you see?
Yes, definitely. There was someone earlier who said something about the seasons that we are in, I can't remember the statement at the moment, but yes, that's exactly what it is, George. And see, this is the thing. Our desire for change renders our free will, remits our free will to the universe. When we desire change and don't know how to do it, we're saying to the universe, whatever and however, we will embrace it. Therefore, it is the universe who determines the seasons. However, it is up to us to recognize the signs of the time so we can see the different seasons. Does that make sense, George?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Anything else? Okay.
You just reminded me of something when you were talking, and I was my mind quickly went to our history and what we taught and talked about it and put in the atmosphere in the last couple of years, and that transformation of recognizing what we seek and moving in that direction and not being deterred or moved it to the left or the right, and keeping that focus. And in that time, we too, and I mean the people on this line, are not only transforming themselves from the existence in the earth, but to actually being the human and being that conduit that attracts light and darkness and transform it to the rhythms of the universe. So when we have these sessions and the thoughts, the questions, the energy that goes about, and a lot of it, we get on the line and having no idea of what direction or what is going to be talked about, but it is fed from a question that moves in the direction that it needs to go. So that is part of the transformation, and that is us doing what the universe is calling for, what the earth needs at that time. So we are, or maybe have become, the Enoch of our time, but we have not put it on paper. We're putting it in the universe. And the transformation that we speak of, we're in the midst of it. We're right in the midst of it. So that is, that is fed from the question. That is fed from even from the redundancies that we go over lessons over and over. That means that there's still confusion out there about something that needs to be straightened out, and that is what we have purpose to do. So I just saw that, and when you talked about transforming that energy and the noise that's out there. So I just want to say again, just stay focused.
And that's one of the reasons it's so important that if you have a question, you raise it. If you have a comment, you state it. If you see something a bit differently, you make us aware of it. That's important. That's extremely important. There's no one on this line who's especially teachers who are uncomfortable with being corrected or uncomfortable with questions. Our comfort is there because without your questions, none of us grow, and there is no fruit to bring forth. Our discussions on the phone are given to us as we speak because it allows us to remove our intellect from our spirituality and allows our soul to speak as opposed to simply speaking it from our mind, as our minds have been trained in a way that is different than our souls. Our minds have been taught by religion. Our souls have been brought into existence through spirituality for the purpose of guiding these bodies in the earth and dominating the mind, thus changing earth consciousness, or redeeming earth consciousness, maybe I should say. Thank you.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So all these beings that are appearing in the universe, are we working with them, and it's like we're working together as far as trying to get mankind back to where it was? Are we having help? I mean, because and the reason why I said it, because I keep hearing and seeing things where people are reporting where these beings are coming. I mean, there are sightings, and it's got to be that. I mean, I know we're not the only one existing, but other beings realize how mankind is like almost self-extinct, if that makes sense.
Well, first of all, mankind has never been balanced since it came in contact with other people, other thoughts. Mankind's imbalance came, or started rather, when that entity called Adam said that for this cause shall a man shall leave his father, leave of womb, and cling to is Ishah, meaning that the separation came when that entity said a man leaving to cling and clinging to woman. That is the being separating itself in its mind, or in its thoughts rather, from the feminine. And that was the step towards these earthly bodies. And that was the intent from the beginning. So mankind has never become Elohim as it was supposed to be. It has gotten close. It has struggled to get there. And all of it was diminished. Why? Because of the contact that it had with other thoughts. And the thought that it had contact with started to make every effort to take advantage of it, to destroy it, to steal its goods. And when it did that, the loving kindness was taken advantage of. And the response to that the loving kindness being taken advantage of should have been redemption for those who were taken advantage. And that would have brought us to a place of balance in the earth, but it wasn't. We submitted to it. And one of the clearer understandings of our submission to it was when Alexander went into Egypt, and he came in at the behest of one of the pharaohs. Even though it was illegal for him to do it, he did it out of selfishness. And now we are where we are in a broader sense because of that. So what we are actually engaged in is bringing humanity to a place of being human, meaning that Elohim is creating a human experience for the entity Elohim that it created. It created an Adam. Adam simply speaks to the ability to become Elohim. And rather than do that, we actually relegated ourselves to living in accordance with the animalistic concept. Now we are changing that so that we, as humans in this earth, as mankind in the earth, can become humans. Does that make sense, Evelyn? And I'll deal with the other thing after this, okay?
Yes, and I'm processing what you just said.
Okay. Now, when you speak to the beings, we have nothing to do with that. When I hear those things and read those things, I just leave them alone. Why? Because I don't have any control over it. We don't have any control over it. If it is necessary for that reality to become our reality by virtue of contact, then that's fine. If it doesn't, that's okay too. I don't dismiss it in terms of they're not real. I just know that our focus has to be this earth realm. We were not told to dominate the universe. We were told to dominate the earth. Got it?
Yes, I got it.
Okay. Anyone else?
Thank you.
Anything else? Hello? Any other questions? Comment?
Not for
I
me.
have a question.
Go ahead.
This is for Mel. We were talking earlier about this being a time of a season, I think, of loving kindness in the earth with regards to this holiday. Is that this what I want to ask is, it's also a sad time for a lot of people, and is that sadness or sorrow a result of not connecting, not feeling connected to family in some sort of way, or feeling disconnected?
Some of it is, yes. However, loving kindness cannot exist without sorrow.
That makes sense. Okay.
And sorrow does what? What sorrow does is intensifies the desire for loving kindness. Have you ever spoken with someone who was in a state of sorrow, and you did not know what to say to them or how to move them beyond that.
Yeah.
I just don't have the words. You hug them or you give them your presence, and it helps them. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, got it.
It causes you to search your heart for a way to bring love and kindness to them so they can be elevated from their sorrow to love and kindness. Questions? Does that make sense, guys?
Yes.
Yeah, it does.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Questions or comments? Okay. I appreciate your time. And enjoy the rest of your day. And don't ever forget that we are in this earth for the purpose of bringing to remembrance to everyone in this earth, inclusive of us, our purpose for being here. And regardless of what we see, what we experience, know that it is for the good of mankind. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Good day, everybody.
Bye, family. Enjoy family.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.